Assalamualaikum dear students, hope you all are well and doing great. The video on this topic contains instructive and educational content that is both shareable and easy to retain, so let's start. In this topic we are going to discuss the ways how the sensory and nervous systems work together to rapidly communicate information and to maintain homeostasis in an animal's body. In addition, many animals have a second slower form of communication and coordination, and this is the endocrine system with its chemical messengers. Let's see what are chemical messenger. A chemical messenger is any compound that serves to transmit a message. Chemical messengers can be categorized as local chemical messengers, as neurotransmitters, as neuropeptides. They may be pheromones and they may be hormones. In this figure here shows the chemical messengers, their targets and their transport. In the A, here is the short distance local chemical messenger which act on the adjacent cell. In the B, here shows a neurotransmitter that crosses the synaptic cleft to act on target cell. In the C section, here shows a neuropeptide that travels some distance in the bloodstream to reach a target cell. In the D section, here shows the hormones which enter the bloodstream and travel to target cells. E section shows the pheromones that leave the body and stimulate the target cells in another animal. So let's start with the local chemical messenger. Local chemical messengers are the compounds that transmit information. They alter the physiological conditions in immediate vicinity. Vertebrate examples include some of the chemicals which are the hormones that the gut produces and they help to regulate digestion. In a wound, mast cells secrete a substance which is called histamine that participates in inflammatory response. Neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are often referred to as body's chemical messengers. They are the molecules which are used by the nervous system to transmit message between neurons or from neurons to muscles. Communication between two neurons happens at the synaptic cleft. Let's see what are neuropeptides. They are secreted from neurons which are also called neurohormones. They are the members of a class of protein-like molecules which are made in the brain. They consist of short chains of amino acids. What are hormones? Hormones are the chemical substances that act like messenger molecules in the body. After being made in one part of the body, they travel to other parts of the body where they help to control how the cells and organs do their work. What are pheromones? They are the small molecules that when released by one organism act as chemical signals to induce a certain behavior in another organism. Examples include the scents that attract animals to each other in a mating process. Endocrine system. Let's see what is the endocrine system. The endocrine system is the collection of glands that produce hormones that regulate metabolism, growth and development, tissue function, sexual function, reproduction, sleep and growth, and mood. Let's see how the nervous and endocrine systems are alike. Like the nervous system, the endocrine system is also a regulatory system. Instead of using electrical impulses, endocrine system use chemical signals which is the hormones that travel through the bloodstream and control the actions of cells and organs. Hormones and their chemistry. What are hormones? A hormone is a chemical messenger that enables communication between cells. They are secreted by the glands of endocrine system. They affect the activity of another part of the body which is also the target side of the cell. Hormones functions is to maintain homeostasis and to regulate numerous other systems and processes including reproduction and development. Hormones chemistry include the three classes of hormones which are the peptide hormones, lipid-derived hormones and monoamine hormones. First we see what are peptide hormones. They are comprised of short and long chains of amino acids. They are secreted by pituitary gland, they regulate the osmotic balance and they are water soluble but cannot pass through the plasma membrane alone. Lipid-derived hormones are the hormones which are derived from fats and lipids such as linoleic acid and the phospholipids. They are lipid-soluble and can pass through the plasma membrane. The main class of the lipid-derived hormones are the steroids which are derived from cholesterol. Steroid hormones include testosterone, estrogen and cortisol. What are monoamine hormones? They are derived from single aromatic amino acids like phenylalanine, tyrosine and tryptophan. Examples include the tryptophan-derived melatonin that is secreted by the pineal gland to regulate sleep patterns. Feedback control system. What is a feedback control system? A process that uses one component to regulate another. They are the biological mechanisms whereby homeostasis is maintained. Most of the hormones are regulated by the feedback mechanisms, therefore they monitor the changes in the animal or in the external environment and sends information to the central control unit which is a central nervous system that makes the adjustments and maintain homeostasis. Next are the feedback systems types. Two types are here, a positive feedback system and a negative feedback system. Negative feedback systems occurs when a product feeds back to decrease its own production. Negative feedback monitor the amount of hormone secreted, altering the amount of cellular activity as needed to maintain homeostasis. Example, suppose that the metabolic rate in the body cells of a dog slows down. The hypothalamus responds to this slower rate by releasing some thyroid-tropin releasing hormone, which causes the pituitary gland to secrete more thyroid-tropin or thyroid stimulating hormone. This hormone causes the thyroid gland to secrete a hormone which is the thyroxine. Thyroxine increases the metabolic rate and this restores the homeostasis. Conversely, if the metabolic rate speeds up, the hypothalamus releases less thyroid-tropin releasing hormone, the pituitary secretes less thyroid stimulating hormone, and the thyroid secretes less thyroxine. And the metabolic rate decreases once again, and the homeostasis is restored again. Next, we see what is the positive feedback. Positive feedback occurs when a product feeds back to decrease its own production. This system is relatively rare in animals because they usually lead to instability or pathological states. Mechanisms of hormone actions include two main classes: fixed membrane receptor mechanism and mobile receptor mechanism. Let's see what is fixed membrane receptor mechanism. This type of mechanism is shown by water-soluble hormones, which are the amines and proteins in compositions such as growth hormone, oxytocin, and antidiuretic hormone, etc. These hormones cannot pass through the lipid membrane. In this figure, here shows the steps of fixed membrane receptor mechanism. A protein hormone molecule diffuses from the blood to a target cell. The binding of the hormone to a specific plasma membrane receptor activates the adenylate cyclase. This enzyme system catalyzes the cyclic AMP inside the cell. Cyclic AMP diffuses throughout the cytoplasm and activates an enzyme which is the protein kinase, which then phosphorylates the specific proteins in the cell and trigger the biochemical reactions, leading ultimately to the cell's response. What is a mobile receptor mechanism? A mobile receptor mechanism is shown by lipid-soluble hormones, which are the fatty acids and steroids that can easily pass through the plasma membrane. They possess the intracellular receptors. Here shows the steps for the mobile receptor mechanism. A steroid hormone molecule diffuses from the blood to a target cell and then across the plasma membrane of a target cell. Once in the cytoplasm, the hormone binds to a receptor that carries it into the nucleus. The steroid protein complex triggers the transcription of specific protein regions of DNA. The messenger RNA transcript is then translated into a gene product and the protein synthesis in the cytoplasm starts. The new protein then mediates the cell response. Hormones of invertebrates. Some hormones are discussed here. Porifera hormones. Animals in phylum Porifera are in some of the most simple animals on earth. They do not have classical endocrine glands because there is no main pathway for the hormones. The spongy regulate the growth and reproductive actions by specialized cells. Cnidarian hormones, they do not have certain endocrine systems, yet they do have hormones that are present in the tissue. Hydra secretes a hormone which is thyroxine and regulates sexual reproduction through budding. Growth promoting hormone in Hydra stimulate the budding, regeneration, and growth. Platyhelminthes hormones. Neurosecretory cells are identified in some platforms. The neuropeptide secreted from these cells functions in regeneration, asexual reproduction, and gonad maturation. Examples are the neurosecretory cells in the scolex of some tapeworms that control the shedding of prokaryotes or the initiation of stabilization. Nemertean hormones have some cephalizations than platyhelminthes. They have a large brain which is composed of dorsal and ventral pair of ganglia which is connected by the nerve ring. The neuropeptide produced from ganglia appears to control gonadal development and to regulate water balance. Next, we will see the hormones of nematodes. Nematodes do not have endocrine glands identified. They do not have endocrine neurosecretory cells which are associated with the central nervous system. The neuropeptide controls ecdysis of the old cuticle. The neuropeptide released after the new cuticle is produced and stimulate the excretory gland to secrete an enzyme, leucine-aminopeptidase, into the space between the old and new cuticle. The accumulation of the fluid in the space causes the old cuticle to split and to be shed. Mollusk hormones. The ring of the ganglia that constitutes the central nervous system is richly endowed with the neurosecretory cells. The neuropeptides helps to regulate heart rate and kidney functions and energy metabolism. Hormones in snails and slugs stimulate the spermatogenesis and egg development. Annelids hormones. Annelids have well-developed encephalized nervous system, a well-developed circulatory system, and a large coelom. The endocrine system are generally involved in morphogenesis, development, growth, and regeneration. Polychaetes involves the two hormones, juvenile and gonadotropin. Juvenile hormone inhibits the gonads and stimulates the growth and regeneration, whereas the gonadotropin stimulates the development of eggs. Arthropod hormones. Arthropods' endocrine systems are the excellent examples of how hormones regulate growth, maturation, and reproduction. The endocrine system of a crustacean, such as crayfish, controls functions such as ecdysis, sex determination, and color change. Only ecdysis is discussed here. In this figure, here shows the X organs that are the neurosecretory tissues in the crayfish eye stalks. Associated with each X organ is a sinus gland that accumulates and releases the secretions of X organ. Other glands called Y organs are at the base of maxillae. X organs and Y organs control the ecdysis. In the absence of an appropriate stimulus, the neurosecretory cells produces mold inhibiting hormone and the sinus gland releases it. The target of the hormone is the Y organ. When the mold inhibiting hormone is present in high concentration, the Y organ is inactive. Under the appropriate internal and external stimuli, mold inhibiting hormone release is prevented and the Y organ releases the hormone ecdysone, which leads to the molting. Next, we will see the hormones of echinoderms. Echinoderms are the deuterostomes that are the more likely allied to chordates that are the protostomes in vertebrates. Neuropeptides in sea stars called gonad-stimulating hormone involves in the shedding of gametes, spawning behavior, and meiosis in oocytes. Neuropeptides also cause the release of hormone, which is the maturation-inducing substance, which has effects on the reproductive system. Let's see an overview of vertebrate endocrine system. Endocrine system of vertebrate is studied more than invertebrates. This is the best understood system of hormonal control. The endocrine system is a network of chemical communication among cells in vertebrate animals. The endocrine system possesses two types of gland, an exocrine gland and an endocrine gland. Exocrine glands secrete chemicals into the ducts. Ducts then in turn empties into the body cavity or into the body surface. Examples include the mammary glands, salivary glands, and sweat glands. Here, figure shows an exocrine gland, such as sudiferous glands, that secrete the material into a duct that leads to a body surface. Here shows an endocrine gland. They have no ducts. They secrete chemical messengers called hormones directly into the tissue space next to each endocrine cell. The hormones then diffuses into the bloodstream, which carries them throughout the body to the target cells. Next, we will see the vertebrate endocrine systems. Vertebrate endocrine systems searches have revealed the three aspects of endocrinology that relate to species differences in vertebrates. First is that hormones with the same functions in different species may not be chemically identical. Second is certain hormones are species specific with respect to functions. Conversely, some hormones produced in one species may be completely functional in another species. Third is a hormone from one species may elicit a different response in the same target cell or tissue of the different species. In fishes, three major regions secrete neuropeptides, and these regions are the pineal gland, preoptic nuclei, and neurophysis. Melatonin is a hormone which is secreted by the pineal gland. They control variations in the skin color. They are secreted by the fishes, amphibians, and reptiles. Figure shows the hormonal control of frog skin color. The light-colored frog on the left was immersed in water containing the hormone melatonin, whereas the dark-colored frog on the right received an injection of melanocyte-stimulating hormone. Prolactin. Prolactin hormone is released by the pituitary gland. They stimulate the reproductive migration in many animals. Example, the movement of salamanders to water. Prolactin causes the brooding behavior in some fishes. They control water and salt balances. They are essential for the certain saltwater fishes to enter fresh water during spawning runs. Next is the metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a change of physical form, structure, or substance, especially by the supernatural means. Metamorphosis in frogs is controlled by the changes in the concentration of the hormones prolactin, thyroxine, and triiodothyronine. Artemobranchial glands are present in the jawed fishes and primitive tetrapods. Produce the hormones calcitonin that helps to regulate the concentration of blood calcium. Next, we will see the chromaffin tissues. They are the special endocrine cells present near the kidneys. They produce two hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine. They causes the vasoconstrictions, increase blood pressure, changes in the heart rate, and increases blood glucose levels. Figure shows the chromaffin tissues and the adrenal gland in selected vertebrates. In the A shows a ray chromaffin tissue, in the B teleosed adrenal glands, C में neurons का दिखाया गया है, D में lizards का, E में birds का, and these are the mammals chromaffin tissues. Let's see the endocrine systems of birds. Here are the endocrine glands of the birds. Location of the major endocrine glands in the birds. Here is the description. Unique hormones in birds. Prolactin. Prolactin is a hormone which is secreted by the pituitary gland. They stimulate the production of pigeon milks by desquamation in the pigeon's crop. They also stimulate and regulate the following functions such as broodiness, certain kinds of parental behavior. Along with the estrogen, prolactin stimulates full development of brood patch. Let's see what is a brood patch. A robin's single brood patch appears due to the effect of hormone prolactin a few days before the eggs are laid. The brood patch helps to keep the eggs at a temperature between 33 and 37 degrees centigrade. A thyroxine hormone. In addition to the major vertebrate functions, thyroxine regulates the normal development of fetus and the moult cycle and plays a role in the onset of migratory behavior. Testosterone hormone produced from the testes in the male birds. Testosterone controls the secondary sexual characteristics of male, such as bright plumage color, form, and spurs. Calcitonin. Calcitonin is secreted from the ultimobranchial glands. Ultimobranchial glands are the small paired structures in the neck just below the parathyroid glands. Calcitonin is involved in regulating blood calcium concentrations. What is the bursa fabricus? This is a sac that lies just dorsal to the cloaca and empties into it. They are well developed during the bird's embryological development, but it begins to shrink soon after hatching. Its tissues produce secretions that are responsible for the maturation of white blood cells. Endocrine systems of mammals. There is a brief overview of mammalian endocrine system. Figure shows the endocrine glands of the mammals, their location. Let's see what is pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is present directly below the hypothalamus. They consist of two lobes, an anterior lobe which is also known as adenohypophysis and a posterior lobe which is also known as neurohypophysis. The pituitary of many vertebrates also has a functional immediate lobe of mostly glandular tissues. Hormones of neurohypophysis. They secrete two hormones, an antidiuretic hormone and an oxytocin. Antidiuretic hormones decreases the amount of urine secretion and diuretics stimulate the urine excretion, whereas the oxytocin plays a role in mammalian reproduction by its effect on smooth muscles. Adenohypophysis releases 6 different hormones which are the growth hormones, which is also known as gonadotropin hormone, prolactin hormone, thyrotropin or thyroid stimulating hormone, adenocorticotropic hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and gonadotropins. Next are the thyroid glands. Thyroid glands are present at the neck anterior to trachea. They produce two secretions, thyroxine and triiodothyronine. These two secretions influences the growth, development, and metabolic rates. Calcitonin is also secreted to control the levels of calcium ions. Let's see what are parathyroid glands. They are the tiny pea-sized glands embedded in the thyroid lobes. They secrete the parathormone which regulates the calcium concentration and phosphate ions in the blood. Here is the figure which shows the hormonal feedback, the negative feedback mechanism of parathyroid gland. Parathormone stimulates bones to release calcium and the kidneys to conserve calcium. It indirectly stimulates the intestine to absorb the calcium, and the result increases the blood calcium, which then inhibits the parathormone secretion. Next, we will see the adrenal glands. In mammals, two adrenal glands rest on the top of kidney. Each gland consists of two separate glandular tissue, which is the medulla and cortex. Medulla is the inner portion, whereas the cortex is the outer portion that surrounds the medulla. Adrenal cortex secretes 3 classes of steroid hormones, which is the glucocorticoids, minerals, and sex hormones. Here is the figure shows the adrenal gland of a mammal. A shows an adrenal gland that sits on the top of each kidney, whereas the B shows that each gland contains two structurally functioning and developmentally distinct regions, which is the outer cortex and the inner medulla, which is the nervous tissue. Let's see the adrenal medulla. Adrenal medulla contains two neurosecretory cells that secretes the epinephrine and norepinephrine, both of which helps to control the heart rate and carbohydrate metabolism. Pancreas. Pancreas are the elongated fleshy organ which is posterior to the stomach. It functions both as exocrine glands and endocrine glands. The endocrine portion of the pancreas makes up only about 1% of the gland. Here shows the pancreas. The hormone secreting cells of pancreas are arranged in clusters or islets closely associated with the blood vessels. Other pancreatic cells secrete digestive enzymes into the ducts. What are pancreatic islets? Pancreatic portion synthesizes, stores, and secretes hormones from clusters of cells called pancreatic islets. The pancreas contains 2 lakhs to 20 lakhs pancreatic islets scattered throughout the gland. Each islet contains 4 special groups of cells, which are the alpha, beta, delta, and F cells. The alpha produces the hormone glucagon, whereas the beta cells produce insulin, and delta cell secretes the somatotrophin, and the F cell secretes a pancreatic polypeptide of unknown function that is released into the bloodstream after a meal. Next are the gonads. The gonads secrete hormones that helps to regulate the reproductive functions. In male, the testes secrete testosterone, which act as luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone that the adenohypophysis produces to stimulate spermatogenesis. Testosterone's functions are here. These are necessary for the growth, maintenance of the male sex organs. They promote the development and maintenance of sexual behavior. In humans, testosterone stimulates the growth of facial and pubic hair. The testes also secrete inhibin, which inhibits the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone. Ovarian hormones are there. 4 major classes helps to regulate female reproductive functions, which are the estrogens, progestins, relaxins, and inhibins. Their functions are estrogens helps to regulate the menstrual and estrous cycle, whereas the progestin aids in placenta formation during pregnancy. Relaxin softens the opening of uterus at the time of delivery, whereas the inhibin inhibits the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone. Next are the thymus gland. The thymus gland is near the heart. It is large and conspicuous in young birds and mammals, but diminishes in the size throughout the adulthood. Hormonal product of the thymus gland is the thymopoietin, alpha 1 and beta 4 thymosin. They are essential for the normal development of the immune system. This is all about the today's topic. Thank you so much.